love SummerSlam. I really do. I see it as the second biggest event in WWE's calendar. And when you say that, someone goes, oh, it's the Royal Rumble. And then you've got to have a big argument. I'm not saying the Royal Rumble's not more fun. Of course it is. In many ways, the Royal Rumble may be the best pay-per-view WWE puts on, but from their vantage point, I would imagine it goes WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and then for some reason Survivor Series, just because it's been around for so long. But over the years, as they are trying to promote the hottest event of the summer, WWE will give you a load of numbers to make you go, oh man, I can't miss this. But because we're here, are a bunch of assholes, we're gonna give you the other numbers that they don't want you to know. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Let's do exactly what I just said. Number 9, the number 2. SummerSlam 1994 is absolutely incredible because not only do you have that terrific match between Bret Hart and Owen Hart, which is still good today. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? But in the main event, where maybe we should have put Bret and Owen, instead we got The Undertaker versus The Undertaker. And don't forget, the person that was trying to solve this mystery was none other than the greatest comedian ever. I don't mean that as a joke. I love him. Leslie Nielsen. I mean, that is the most mid-90s thing I've ever said in my life. I'd have to just spit out a Power Ranger to come up with something more mid-90s. And while as a kid I did love this, I understand now, looking back as an adult, well, it wasn't the best thing ever. Although secretly deep down it still makes me chuckle. The best bit is that this has all come about when the original Undertaker had died at the Royal Rumble 1994, and then Ted DiBiase had used his magic powers to bring back the Undertaker, although this Undertaker was just a little bit shorter and looked a little bit different. Still though, when they did go face to face all those years ago, I did get goosebumps on my arms, but nowadays, yes, it's very funny. And if you do watch the following 8 minutes that go after this, well again, should this have been the main event of a SummerSlam? No, and that's what we're talking about too here. It's the two Undertakers. Let's probably never do this again. Although we did do it again with Kane, and that thing just ended from nowhere. Number 8, $550,000. I still find it somewhat incredible that the Ultimate Warrior and the WWE ever managed to make up. I mean, he and Vince pretty much hated each other because they had this crazy relationship where they were friends and they weren't friends and they were enemies, and then somebody was suing somebody else and then vice versa. Plus there's all that stuff in the Ultimate Warrior's personal life, which is just awful when you hear about it. It is not a good situation. And this all started way back at SummerSlam 1991, where it is said that during the event or prior to it, Ultimate Warrior said to Vince McMahon, look Vince, you can see why they fell out, I am not going to wrestle tonight unless you pay me $550,000 because I know that's what you're giving to Hulk Hogan and I think I'm on the same level as him. Now we do have to point out that these figures came from the mouth of Hulk Hogan, so you can't trust that too much, but this encounter did happen because a bunch of parties have come out after the fact and said yes, it absolutely went down. We just don't know how much Warrior actually wanted. But the Hulkster and Sergeant Slaughter were waiting in the wings just in case they had to shake things up. At the time, McMahon did agree in principle, but of course this is Vinnie Mac we're talking about, and as soon as that was all said and done, he suspended the Ultimate Warrior, and they kind of fell out for a little while. And they fell out again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Number 7, $80,355. If you are a British fan like me and you're old to the point you're heading towards your grave and the Death Man is coming to get you, that's right, the Death Man, you will of course know that SummerSlam 92 was here in the United Kingdom. And as always, I have to tell my sad story. I've told it before and I'll tell it again. I was meant to be at this event. My father was driving us there, but he actually did the thing. He said to my brother, if you don't calm down, because he was playing up, if you don't calm down, I'll turn the car around and take us home. He hit my sister, and he actually took us home, depriving me of a live SummerSlam. I am not over it. But the reason 80,355 is such an interesting number is because, give or take a few people here or there, that was actually the attendance figure for SummerSlam 1992. When you go through the official records of WWE, that's basically the most people they've ever done. But then you start stroking your chin and going, they don't really talk about it that much. Why? And it all comes down to 93,173, which is the inflated number that WWE will tell you they got for WrestleMania 3. Now that's not true. They still had a bunch of people there, but they're so obsessed of putting WrestleMania 3 on this pedestal that it affects SummerSlam 92. And that goes for the 101,763 fans they also said was at WrestleMania 32. Interestingly, I did get to go to that one, so that was the world giving me a favor. But yeah, those last two figures are inflated, which is fine, it's wrestling, do whatever you want, but I still would like some love to go to the only major pay-per-view we've ever got here in the United Kingdom. I know Insurrection doesn't count, or Rebellion, or Capital Carnage, I loved all of those, but let's not pretend they weren't B-shows. Number 6, 157,000. We are now going all the way back to SummerSlam 1996, where in the main event, Shawn Michaels, took on Vader. And look, both these people are Hall of Famers, both these people are legends, but unfortunately at the time, wrestling was just in the doldrums. Not a lot of people bought it on pay-per-view. If you've already figured it out, it only got 157,000 buys. And this was crazy because the year before, WWE had got 205,000 buys for SummerSlam 1995, and even then they were panicked, and that's why they made all those changes. I mean, back then Kevin Nash, Diesel, was the champ. They then put the belt on Shawn Michaels going, this will turn things around. And well, frankly, it didn't work. It just goes to show that sometimes when the cards are down, you just have to keep punching and fighting through. But look, I told you I was giving you a bunch of numbers that WWE will never talk about. So that's what I just did. Number 5, 7. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, do not go look it up because it will just upset you. But the number 7 relates to SummerSlam 2010 and those 7 members of the group known as Nexus. Or against us. Now, I actually think the plan all along was for John Cena to beat up the Nexus and prove to them, hey, you do not come and invade my World Wrestling Entertainment because I will send you packing. But this was such a shame because finally we had a new faction that actually had some momentum, they had some heat, they had some popularity, and if they had just won here or got something, who knows how we'd be talking about them now. The real issue was that as soon as John Cena had been beaten up for a while, he just got magical powers and took out half of the team in around about 3 minutes, and it just didn't serve anyone other than John Cena, who was already crazy popular. I mean, he's still popular now, and he hasn't been in WWE for around about 32 years. And if you really want one final piece of evidence, here we are 10 years later, and none of these guys from Nexus, aside from maybe David Otunga, I don't really get what his relationship with WWE is anymore, but none of them work for the promotion as I'm saying these words. I mean, Heath Slater held on for a little while, but now he out the door. In hindsight, I bet Daniel Bryan is well happy he choked Justin Roberts with that tie. Number 4, 8 seconds. This one is all about SummerSlam 2013, which you can catch now courtesy of Retro Ups and Downs, so please do go watch it for your old pal Simon, but 8 seconds is all the time that it took for Randy Orton and Triple H to screw over Daniel Bryan at the main event of that show. And while it does sound absolutely terrible out of context, actually when you do go back and watch the event that I did recently, all of this is so well done by WWE. I mean, that wouldn't have been the case if they had held Daniel Bryan down like they wanted, but he did manage to main event WrestleMania 30, and we did all get that magic. So I actually think it's not too bad. I mean, it was also the start of the Authority, which did come problematic after a while. But hey ho, I'm just here with the numbers and I'm throwing it at you right now. But 8 seconds, pedigree, Randy Orton, 1, 2, 3, celebrated. LA was not happy. Number 3, 24 years old. One of the major reasons that Randy Orton did win that big gold world title belt at SummerSlam 2004 is because Brock Lesnar had left the company recently and he was the youngest champion in WWE history. And well, the powers that be wanted to change that. Randy Orton was 24, so they were like, well, that's an easy fix. Just give it to the Viper. Although then I don't think he was the Viper, I guess he would have just been a little snake. And of course, the reason that you barely hear this mentioned is because of the person that he beat, and that was Chris Benoit. I mean, we've talked about this time and time again. I don't actually think it matters what he did in the wrestling world because everything outside of it was just so crazy. So I kind of stand with WWE on this one. It's still so hard to get my head around. I know there's better people out there to talk about it than me, but I'm a fan and that's how I feel. If you want one final piece of trivia as well, when Brock Lesnar was able to get that accolade, he also did it at SummerSlam 2 years earlier when he absolutely whipped The Rock's ass. Number 269. No, not like that. You dirty-minded fool. What is wrong with you? Grow up. But if we do zoom forward to SummerSlam 2016, where we actually had a match between Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar, and that ties in just wonderfully, you will remember there was no massive build here. Aside from the fact it was promoted like an MMA fight, where we were promised that the Beast and the little snake Viper Man were gonna kick the holy hell out of each other. And I guess at least we weren't lied to, but that finish. Because this whole thing concluded with Brock smacking Randy so hard in the head with legitimate shots that he bled I don't even know how you describe it. It was disgusting, it was hard to watch. It was like all of a sudden we'd forgotten that wrestling was meant to be a work, and indeed the 69 ties in to how many shots Randy Orton had to suffer. It pissed the locker room off so much that even Chris Jericho approached Brock Lesnar afterwards. He's like, what are you doing? They almost had a fight, which would have been awful for Le Champion, but everybody was freaking out. And yeah, I know that the majority of them were of course work punches, but what weren't were the 5 or 6 that required Orton to have a bunch of stitches in his head. If you have the stomach for this, just go and watch it. The blood is so thick because it's so damn real. Number 1, 0. And let's finish it off by giving a little bit of love to SummerSlam 2020 and the very sad news that when we do dot up the attendance for this one, well, the number is going to be 0. And let's not get confused here, it's the right thing to do. We are in no way in a place to allow fans back into buildings, but I'm still sad about it. I miss the roar of the crowd, I miss that kind of reaction, even more so because SummerSlam 2020 was earmarked as the event where Vince McMahon wanted to let people back in. I mean, he was being way too optimistic, but I suppose it's good to be positive. It also meant at one point the pay-per-view was going to be on a boat, and then it was going to be on the moon, and then it was going to be on Mars, but ultimately it is going to be in the Amway Center, and after SmackDown, which by the time you've seen this will have happened, we're going to see what the hell the Thunderdome is all about. And again, I am kind of excited. Nobody does production like WWE, and if they hit it out of the park, SummerSlam will actually feel like a big deal, and damn it, I've been waiting for a wrestling event called WWE to feel like a big deal. That's no offense to the Performance Center, but I think towards the end, it kind of did feel like you were trapped in a box and just screaming to get out of there. Well, now we're out, and if you're one of the lucky ones, you'll be a face on an LED board. Dreams come true. Know of any other numbers related to SummerSlam that WWE doesn't want you to talk about? Well, do it in the comments, and let's all be renegades and run around like ragamuffins. And like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture, and if you are watching this prior to SummerSlam 2020, why not hop on the train of ups and downs and see what I thought of the show? It will be a pleasure to see your face. Goodbye.